I'm looking for all the baddies all over the world. Ladies, where my baddies at? I'm bad, you bad. Where my baddies at? I'm bad.
Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything at a Bit Gay podcast. Today I have Ann Russo on my show. Welcome to the show, Ann.
Hi, Zach. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So Ann is founder and clinical director of AMR Therapy, and we are going to talk about a couple of different topics. One, we're going to talk about just how religion maybe influences the LGBTQ plus community. And then Ann has a lot of other topics that we did a kind of pre-discussion before this podcast started that I would love to get into. So Ann, tell me kind of about your experience working with the LGBTQ plus community and how you think religion kind of impacts this community.
So I want to share a little bit about how I got here. Yeah, because I've been working with LGBTQ folks, my goodness, since like high school. Like I found the first gay club and in my high school. So it's been a ride. And I was raised in a gay household. So so my experience with Christianity was really very periphery when I was young. I just knew that these are the folks that reject gay people.
Yep.
You know, and that was basically all I knew. And they had these beliefs around that. And I didn't really understand what that was.
Okay.
And when I was 18, I started to explore Christianity more. And I met some people that were very involved with this evangelical church.
Okay.
And so I started going to it. But I was out. I was an openly gay, queer person. I started going to this church. And I was very curious, why don't these people like gay people? Why do they say we're going to hell? What's going on here, right? So I spent a lot of time.
Did you tell them who you were when you went to the church?
Yeah. Yeah. The philosophy at that time, so this was the early 2000s, was hate the sin, not the sinner.
Okay.
It's evolved, but at this point, it was very much like, well, how do we help you not be sinful anymore?
Oh.
Right. So I was just very curious. I did not expect my sexual orientation to change by any means, but I did not understand why they held these perspectives. Right. So I really immersed myself in this group. I went as far as to go on a missions trip.
Wow.
I spoke in front of an international Baptist conference. I even was part of a group that went to an ex-gay conference. But you have to keep in mind, Zach, that this whole time I wasn't trying to become ex-gay. This really was an anthropological experiment for me. I really wanted to understand what was going on here.
And you said you grew up in a gay household. So does that mean that can you tell me what that means?
Yes. My dad is gay. And he did that when I was 5.
And what did he think when you said, I'm going to research this? What was his
thought
first
I lost
thought?
my mind.
Yeah,
Yeah, he thought I absolutely lost my mind. I was just so fascinated and so curious, you know, and so basically at that time, I really dove in, and I would have conversations and arguments and really getting into the Bible and what is all of this. And I ended up getting my bachelor's in religion, and then I got my master's in theology. And I finally got a very clear, cohesive picture of what these conservative Christians believed and why they believed it. So my goal was to take that information and help people. Okay. And I thought that was going to look like me doing theology, honestly. Like I thought maybe I'll be a pastor, this or that. But my own faith beliefs didn't really align with doing that. So I ended up becoming a psychotherapist. And that is my focus, the intersection of queerness and Christianity and sex positivity, and just moving away from these negative narratives around non-mainstream lives and alternative ways of participating in the world.
And do you think that religion, do you think the different religious groups are getting, in some ways, I think I hear sometimes I feel like they're getting more open and relaxed about it. And then other ones I think are becoming more harsh to the LGBTQ plus community. What are your thoughts?
So I have seen a lot of expansive thoughts in theology surrounding the LGBTQ community as
Mhm.
far as more denominations and more groups being accepting. But what I think, and to your point, I think what we're seeing is some of those more hard-lined groups are really putting their foot down against the LGBTQ people and literally like fighting, like trying to fight us,
Yeah.
rather than it being something that they don't believe in. They're actively working against us. And that's
Yeah.
always existed, but I think that the political climate is really creating that even more so now.
What are your thoughts on like the Westboro Baptist Church and how they go to all these events and protest and stuff? I
Oh,
mean,
Zach, I am so happy you brought that up because I have met several of the members.
really?
Yes, because of my just that fascination. What is going on? What are they thinking? What are they believing? Right. So they had 2 rallies. This was about 10 years ago when I lived in Long Beach, California. And I ended up talking to one of them for quite a long time. And they are, I mean, the challenge with the Bible is you can find what you're looking for. So I can sit here and tell you, like, yeah, they're following the Bible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I can tell you somebody that's doing the exact opposite of them is also following the Bible.
Mhm.
Right. So I understand why through the Bible they are where they are, but not that I believe it or agree with it. Right. But the fascinating thing is that a few years back, the granddaughter of Fred Phelps actually left the Westboro Baptist Church and renounced all those teachings. And she came out to the Gay and Lesbian Center in Las Vegas, where I was living at the time, and spoke to the community and apologized to us.
Wow.
And that was really, really very powerful and very moving experience.
Wow. And what made her come to her senses and realize that what they were teaching was hateful and not.
So she ran the social media accounts for the Westboro Baptist Church, and she ended up speaking to a Jewish gentleman, and they ended up having more and more dialogue. And he got her thinking that this man's going, based on my teachings, he's going to hell. These people are going to. So she started being in a situation where she started being able to question those thoughts by having experiences with people outside of the church. It
Because
was
it's not just LGBTQ plus people. It
no,
is
it was
Jewish people. It's
everybody.
everything. It's everybody.
With the
Yeah.
Westboro Baptist Church, it was everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, you feel like they're a cult basically in some ways, like where they're just teaching hate and
I think that any church that has a very dogmatic belief system where you cannot leave that belief system is culty.
yeah. Yeah. And,
So yeah, I do think that was a cult.
and tell me what you think about just from the people that you have counseled or worked with. How has religion and these type of things that people see or they experience in their own religion or their own church or their own household, how is that impacting people in the LGBTQ plus community? Because I mean, for me, I have to say, it makes me not believe in anything because they're just me being a gay man and being told, I'm going to hell no matter what, and that they're so against it, against my lifestyle and stuff, and it makes you like, okay, well then I can't believe in this. I can't be a part of this. Like, what reaction have you gotten from other people in the community?
So what I've noticed is if a person is not raised within the faith, it's easier to be dismissive of it. It's not perfect by any means because we really are a very Christian oriented country, whether, we want to admit that or not. But what I have seen is that when people are grappling with faith and their sexual orientation, they're really put in a position where there's identity involved in both. Now, I have a very, orientation. It is what it is. I don't believe that's something that you can change, right?
Yeah.
Some might say, well, you can change your religion. Sure. But if that belief is so deep within you that the tenets of a faith, it may not just be so easy to just forget it and no longer participate in that, right? So through my work, it's really about that reconciliation. And I do that a lot through knowledge. So, and also really meeting people where they are is very important too, because how you talk to one person is not necessarily how you're going to talk to another person, right? So I've had clients that are very steeped in a belief system, but they don't really know much about the belief system. Okay. So a lot of times it may just be getting their understanding of what the belief system is and where does that actually come from, right? Did it come from a pastor, their parent? Did it actually come from the Bible, their own studies, right? Because what I have found is that when you're steeped or born into a faith, you don't necessarily question it, right? You're just born, this is what it is. And I don't know why I think what I think, but this is what I think, right? So the tools to start to process the religion, what is it? Where did it come from? How much of this could be true? Like really looking at it, right? And I find that can be very helpful for people, just that first step. And I have exercise and quizzes about like, what's Jesus mean to you? Is Jesus this, or this? Like, you know what I mean? So there's like a lot to like kind of like look at.
Yeah.
And then, but I find that a lot of the work is also around the internalized homophobia. And then there's also something that was not coined by me. I can't remember who said this term, but it's a great term, Christophobia.
Okay.
Where, and I experience this too, and I'm curious, maybe you do as well, but when people say they're Christian, you almost become hypervigilant and nervous that they're automatically going to dislike you. Or they're automatically going to think you're going to hell, right? So it's like you're automatically like, oh shit, this is the Christian, right? And I think a lot of LGBTQ folks experience that. It doesn't line up with love for us.
Right.
You know?
I will say that, so I live in the Boston area, and a lot of the churches here now have pride flags outside, and they are, very welcoming. I from what I can see and what I've heard, I haven't been to one of the churches, but there seems to be, in Massachusetts or Boston is maybe I'm in a bubble, and it's different than other places. If you were going to Alabama, you're probably not going to see pride flags outside of churches there. But, I do think that some religions are trying to be more welcoming.
Yes. And you have to keep in mind too that Christianity is, oh my gosh, tens of thousands of different denominations at this point. I just looked it up recently and it was an astounding number. And they're all believing some things differently, some things the same, right? So I think if you're a gay person and you're looking to stay within your faith or within Christianity, you can find that accepting place.
Yeah.
If that's what you choose to do. But there is a lot of reconciliation that goes into it. Absolutely.
And tell me how you kind of have, like, can you tell me, without telling me the person's name, but maybe just tell me a little bit how you've counseled people who come to you and are conflicted with their religion and being gay, and how you've kind of helped bring that together for them.
Sure. So, a client in particular was part of a pretty strict dogmatic church, and they were okay. This is kind of fascinating, right? They were okay with their sexual orientation as a gay person.
Okay.
But they hid it from the church, and they believed in all the other dogmatic pieces of the faith except for the part around sexual orientation.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue for this person is that they were really being fragmented, right? So in the church, they were one thing, and then outside of the church, they were another thing. And that's not a sustainable way to be.
No, it's a double life.
Yeah, exactly. So they're unsustainable. So our work was to move them out of this church that they had been in for over 2 decades.
Wow.
Yeah. And while still holding on to a very dogmatic Christian perspective, and then trying to find a church or people that held that dogmatic perspective, except outside of the sexual orientation. So what we needed to do was help them parse out, what is this specific church?
Mm-hmm.
What is the Bible? What is Christianity and Jesus? What is this church? Right? So just parsing that out. And that took some time.
Yeah.
Because when you're having messages reinforced over and over again, it's very difficult to see outside of those messages, right?
Plus, you have 2 decades where you have kind of ingrained yourself in this community or this church, and
Yes.
trying to move out of that must be incredibly difficult.
Well, because then they're your family too,
Yeah.
right? Like you spend over 2 decades with a church, and then you're told that if you don't go to this church, or people that no longer go to this church, people from the church are not allowed to speak to those people anymore.
Oh, so you're losing your whole social system.
Exactly.
Wow.
Right. So and if you leave this particular church, you're going to hell. Right? If you leave this particular church, you're no longer following God's will.
Even if you switch to another church, it's still, that's horrible.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Right. Yeah. So this was a very dogmatic, very strict adherence to this specific teaching of this pastor.
And have you had to deal with any kind of gay conversion therapy, people that have come to you that have been tried to be placed in that, or a church that has tried to do gay conversion?
Yes. And that is really, I have no words for my view of doing that to people. Yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed a guy that now has a nonprofit where he was sent to a gay conversion when he was 15 or 16 by his parents. And it turns out that the person that was doing this was trying to get all this. He wanted to talk about him. He's like, well, tell me what you think about when you masturbate. Like it was turning him on. And it was really kind of just like, and this guy, he could still be in practice doing this, but he was really a sicko, just, trying to make this guy feel so horrible for what he was, living his true self, authentic self, and giving him all the stuff, but at the same time trying to, get things out of this 15-year-old kid, which was, wrong in so many
Sexual
levels.
abuse. I mean, it is that's sexual abuse.
Yeah, it is totally. And have people like just said, I don't believe in this anymore, because if religion doesn't, come and like if it doesn't accept my life, I'm done with it. And have you tried to like bring people back into it, saying, well, listen.
No. I will never try to make anybody do anything.
Okay.
Yeah, so if someone comes to me and says, I hate this faith and I'm over it, fine. Okay, let's talk about what that means for you. If someone comes to me and says, I really believe that being gay is a sin and I don't want to act on it, I'll work with them too. Like, this is not about what I think or what I believe. This is about working with the individual to help them.
And like, how would you work with somebody that says, I don't want to be gay anymore? I mean, you can't just change it, but is it changing their, I guess what they do in their day-to-day life? Or like, how would you work with somebody like that ask for that type of help?
Well, what I would do is I would just explore what that means to them. I mean, I have to get a lot of information. So you have to
Yeah.
explore what that means to that person, understand what their behaviors and thoughts are already. Is that something that they're very strong on? See, my thought is that in time, that perspective may change as we're talking and exploring more things, but it's not my job to make that perspective change. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like I want to give people all the tools they need, but I can't have an agenda. That's
Yeah.
basically what I'm trying to say. Like and I think that that's important because I also value working with the straight community that have these beliefs as well.
Yeah. So tell me about that. So when you're working with some of these, different groups, and are you trying to educate kind of the straight community to say, listen, we're just people, we're just another
Yeah.
community, and we're not sinning like certain churches say. Like, tell me about your work there.
Yeah. So that's actually my favorite part.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite part. I don't get to do that too often because I think that people just assume that I'm going to have a very specific agenda
Yep.
and I'm going to fight with them, but I'm never going to fight with them. I want them to see me as a person. Yeah. So I guess if I just go back to when I participated in a conservative church when I was younger, I just showed up as myself.
Okay.
Right. So right away, interacting with a gay person, I think already shifted some people's ideas. Because when you don't have access to people or you think you don't have access to people, right? There's a strange belief system that being gay is just about sex, drugs, and rock and roll and partying and,
Hmm.
and so they don't necessarily understand that sexual orientation and those behaviors have nothing to do with the other, right? So it's like, well, if you're gay, then you must be this. So they can't like discern it.
So it's kind of like they're meeting you in real life. They're like, oh, wow, you're not this
Yes.
person that goes out 7 nights a week and does drugs and has sex with everybody, because that's what gay people supposedly do. So they seen you are a normal person living a
Yes.
normal life, and that kind of
Yes.
helped educate them.
Yes, because I remember one conversation I had in particular with somebody was I came out to her. We were already friends. I actually met her on the missions trip, and she came out to visit me, and she met my girlfriend, and she was shocked because she couldn't believe that I could be gay because of the way that I lived my life. But she had no experience.
Yeah.
She just had.
I love that you did that, though. Like, it's kind of just,
I think it's the most important part.
yeah.
Because there's just a deep misunderstanding. And what I've seen in trainings, because I've run some trainings and I'll have, the LGBTQ folks come in, and then inevitably I have a bunch of people come in with Bibles ready to fight me. And all day long we can fight. And what I tell them is, when it comes to the Bible, I can't prove or disprove your faith. I can't. Like, we can sit here all day long and discuss this verse versus this verse and that. We could do that all day long.
Mm-hmm.
We're never going to actually get anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's some people that you truly are not going to get anywhere with because all they can do is yell Bible verses at you. Okay, fine. You got to pick your battles, right?
But they don't want to change, though, right? I mean, there's just they're stuck in their mind, and they're not going to change no matter what.
Exactly. And that's why it's like, I think it's very important for us as LGBTQ people to recognize who those folks are and then make our boundaries.
Yeah.
Right. But there are many people out there that just don't have the information or think they have the information, but it's just not correct information. And I remember this lady who came in with the Bible. Afterwards, we started talking, and she was concerned because her son came out as gay, and now she was scared to death that he was going to get HIV and he was going to be in the bars and doing drugs, and she was trying to save him from that life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that she was concerned about his mental health because she knew that gay people have poor mental health
Mhm.
outcomes compared to their straight counterparts.
Yes.
But her perspective was it was because of being gay.
Mm.
Right. So we had a talk and the one seed that I tried to plant in her thought process was it's not the intrinsic piece of being gay. It's the outright rejection of community parents that create the poor mental health outcomes. Supportive parents, loving parents don't create poor mental health outcomes.
And do you see a kind of a shift in people now? I mean, kids are coming out a lot earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever I was growing up, you never would have come out in junior high or high school at all. I mean, especially I grew up in Miami, and you never would have come out there in that time. But now, kids are coming out in junior high school and high school, and parents. I just read that like 90% of parents in the US now are accepting if their child is coming to say that they are gay or trans, which is, I think, a huge difference than where we were even 10 years ago. And what are you seeing with families and parents?
I do see that people are coming out younger and they have just a better understanding and acceptance of folks in general, which I think is just incredible. When I'm working with people in their early 20s, I'm just floored in general with their ability to articulate and express themselves in ways that, I could not have even imagined.
Mhm.
So I guess maybe it's an authenticity and an exploration of self that wasn't happening in our time or couldn't happen in our time at the same way. But I do think, I mean, there are definitely, I mean, we've seen, sadly, I think it's been over the past couple of years that the acceptance of LGBTQ people has gone down a little bit,
Yeah.
and so I think that there are some tough battles, sadly, ahead of us still. I think all we can do is continue to show up. And I know that people have different perspectives, and I think generationally we're going to have different perspectives.
Yeah.
My way is showing up in those spaces, being my authentic self, and just loving who I love and being who I am. And, I'm not fighting, I'm not arguing, I'm just existing.
Yeah.
And I find that that has been really helpful in my years doing this work and in my personal life as well.
And do you see, though, because I can tell all the work that you've done, I mean, have you ever sit back and thought like, wow, I have made a difference in these people's lives, where it could have been you maybe saved somebody from suicide, or you saved somebody from completely abandoning religion when that was such a huge part of their life. I mean, have you sit back and thought about and given yourself credit for all these things that you've done?
Zach, thank you for saying that, because not usually, no.
You should, though.
Usually no, because I always feel like there's more to do. There's more to do. There's more people to reach. There's more
Yeah.
people to talk to. There's more people to support. Every once in a while, something cool will happen,
Mhm.
where I'm like, oh, I did do something positive, or I did help someone. And that does, of
I
course it
mean,
makes me
even the
feel.
lady that you said you were on the mission with and she met your girlfriend at the time, think about how you changed her perspective. And then anybody in the future that she met was gay, she didn't have those same thoughts about. She thought that one person makes a huge difference, because she maybe educated somebody because you educated her and showed her that you are a normal person. So I think I think it's really fantastic that you were your authentic self and that you explored this and the people that you're helping. And one of my last questions is, what did your dad finally think whenever he seen the work that you were doing? And because he was just like, what are you doing? This is crazy. And now did he ever reflect back with you saying, wow, this is amazing what you've done?
Yeah, actually he's very proud of the work that I'm doing now. But I couldn't have done that work without immersing myself in that
Mhm.
culture and going through those
Yeah.
experiences. So I think that while he was wondering what could I possibly be doing, I needed to do that.
Yeah.
Because I needed the inside track, so to speak. And I also had to have empathy from those perspectives rather than going in angry, because by having the empathy and really listening to the people having those viewpoints, I feel like it brought me to a place where I can really talk to them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Ann, your website is annrusso.org, ANNRUSSO.org. So tell, if somebody goes there and they want to reach out to you, what you talked a little bit about trainings and things. Tell us what a life coach, tell us what services you offer that's if somebody wanted to reach out to you.
Okay, so right now I do have CEU courses for mental health providers, and they're approved through the ASWB and ACE. So that covers, I believe, like 47 states out of 50, and then all of Canada. And we
Wow.
all have to get those. So I have one there right now that's about working with non-monogamous clients. And within the month, I'll have another training up on the intersection of Christianity and queerness. And you can join the wait list on that. They're self-paced courses. They're also great courses if you're just interested in the topics. I also offer psychotherapy for people in California and Nevada because that's where I'm licensed.
Mhm.
But I want to offer coaching to people around these issues in other states. It will just look a little bit different based on the fact that it's more of a coaching model, but I want to be there because I don't feel like there's enough folks that really specialize in working with this intersection. So I'm available for folks. And I also work with mental health providers as well to help them work better with their clients who may be struggling with these issues.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah. And also I am in the process of writing a book on religious trauma for mental health providers that should hopefully be out within the year. So
That's
just
great.
doing the thing, Zach, just doing the
Yeah.
thing, trying to be
What
out
is
there.
I think the non-monogamous thing, so I'll just say that probably 90% of my friends that are in relationships are in a non-monogamous relationship. It
Yes.
seems to, I don't want to say be the trend, but it seems just the way that people are. So I've been in a 26-year relationship and we are monogamous, but we are one of the only, there's very few of our friends in our group of friends that are monogamous. Is this the new way relationships are now, do you think? This is just the way that things are moving?
Well, I've seen non-monogamy my whole life. So I think that people are coming out with being non-monogamous more. I know like in the gay male community, I think that was a practice that's been around, or more open, I should say.
Yeah.
For a while. But I do see that the general population now is coming out as non-monogamous. And we have a big uptick. I think we're at like 14% or so of people openly practicing non-monogamy.
And that's straight, gay, couple, everything you mean? 14%?
Yeah.
Wow.
And people are more and more curious about it. And mental health providers are really behind in working with folks that are participating in non-monogamy or alternative relationships. So the goal of this course is to help them push through their own barriers, biases, judgments, also see what non-monogamy actually looks like in various styles and have case studies. It's also a great course just for people that are interested in non-monogamy. But mental health has to catch up with where people actually are because we're causing harm. When I have clients coming to me and saying the last therapist I saw told me I need to be monogamous, or there's something wrong with me, or why am I this way, or that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to fight back against that stigmatization of folks that are choosing to not be in monogamous relationships.
Yeah. Great. Well, you're doing some great work. I really appreciate you being on the show. So again, go to Ann Russo, ANNRUSSO.org. Check it out. Reach out to Ann. And I think that you'll find some interesting things on her website. So thanks so much for being on, Ann. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Zach. I hope you have a great day. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks so much.
Where my baddies at? I'm bad. You bad. Where my baddies at? I'm bad. You bad. Where my baddies at? I'm bad. You bad. Where my baddies at? Yeah. Real bad on the proud. Heard you was next, but I'm up now. Yeah, I'm shining like bling blow. And I see a couple haters in the crowd. Yeah, drip, drip, drop, I'm juicy. Don't really care what you say.